Rebirth of the Mirror Spirit. Chapter 1, A Dream of Floating Life. The night is dark, the lights in the Imperial History Mansion are bright, and a grand coming-of-age ceremony is quietly being held. The young man was envious, and slowly walked into the arena with the voice of silk and bamboo in his arms. He is obviously the eldest son, but because of his identity, he can only wear a waiter's robe and serve tea and water to the young master Qingxian who took everything from him. You're born well, but it's a pity you're a fake. Qingxian hooked his lips and smiled, his voice as cold as frost that had not yet melted in late spring. Qingxian lowered his eyes and was silent. He was stolen from someone since he was a child, and he was photographed by the water that day, and it was clear that the person in the mirror was not himself, but no one believed it. In the past 10 years, he has been deprived and trampled on little by little, but he has never bowed his head. He knew that one day, he would come back. It's just that I didn't expect it to come so hastily that day. Qingxian angered the royal family, the imperial censorate was raided, and the whole family was exiled. However, he, a bastard, was rewarded by the emperor to be the consort of Prince Tianjing, a prince who was rumored to be sinister, cold, and aloof from women. On the night of the wedding, the red candles flickered, he held the jade cup in his hand, his eyes were dazed. Just as he raised his glass, a silver light burst out from the palm of his hand. He wore it, and his soul fell into the mirror, becoming the legendary mirror spirit. Underscore 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 un. Chapter 2, The Soul in the Reincarnation Mirror. The mirror spirit is a mysterious existence that guards the 6 realms of reincarnation, and it has not appeared for thousands of years. And he was envious, for some reason, he actually matched with the oldest reincarnation mirror and became its spirit. In the mirror, he saw thousands of threads of fate intertwined, reversed, and cracked, and countless people who were killed and seized power were wailing here. They seek reincarnation, revenge, and a chance to come back. He learned to see through life and death, understand people's hearts, and control the flow of fate. 300 years pass in the mirror, while only 1 year passes in the outside world. Finally, one day, the mirror cracked, and a soul was deeply concerned, pulling him back to the mortal world together. It was when he made a contract with the mirror of reincarnation, leaving a wisp of residual thoughts, I want to know who ruined my life. He returned to his original world with the power of the mirror spirit. And this time, the real Qingxian is back. Underscore 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 un. Chapter 3, Reborn as a Princess. The time of his return was the night of his wedding. But when the quiet king in a black and gold robe pushed the door in, he was no longer the trembling envy of the past. Does the prince know that I am the reincarnation of the mirror spirit? King Tianjing only glanced at him lightly, and said, this king only knows that this king's bride should not be someone else. These words made Qingxian stunned. After getting married, Qingxian found out that this quiet king, Shenzulu, was completely different from the rumoredly ruthless appearance. He was silent, but he remembered that he did not love almonds, although his face was cold, he silently blocked temptations and frames for him again and again. He thought that what he wanted was revenge, but in this palace, he was gradually surrounded by a gentleness that he had never felt before. But the old feud has not been cleared, and the past is still chasing. Qingxian launched an investigation and soon found out that the person who took his life was not Qingxian, but Lan Luan, the third lady of the Imperial History Mansion, who was the real person behind the scenes. Back then, she designed the stealing life chart, and then pushed Qingxian as a stand-in. The purpose was to support her own son to enter the house. And it was no coincidence that the emperor gave the marriage that day. Shenzulu was the only person who found Qingxian's identity disordered back then, and asked for this marriage for him, wanting to preserve it secretly. Qingxian's heart was in turmoil. Chapter 4, The Mirror Breaks the Apocalypse. The power of the mirror spirit is not unlimited. Souls are depleted with each activation. When Qingxian used the mirror power in the poison plan to save Shenzulu, the reincarnation mirror cracked again, showing that if he forcibly disobeyed his fate again, he would fall into the soulless realm forever. But he couldn't stop. He wants to give Qingxian a truth, a price for Lan Luan, and an explanation for himself. He began to reverse the fate chart and found that there was a person in the court, who was in charge of the whole fate from beginning to end. That person was actually the emperor. Before his death, the late emperor read the fortune map, and found that one of his sons was to be deposed or enthroned, and that he had a mirror in his fate, and the mirror represents disloyalty. This son would break the old system and start a new dynasty. The emperor was suspicious, so he ordered Lan Luan to set up a trap, secretly change the fate, and use him as a scapegoat. The marriage granted that day was actually sending him to a dead end. Qingxian sneered. Since I am not a minister, then I will go against this fate and change the lord of the world. underscore 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 un. Chapter 5, Dust and Spark. A year later, the whole country was in turmoil, the emperor suddenly fell ill, and several murders in the palace were all pointed to the inner court. Qingxian went out of the palace to inspect under the name of Quiet Princess, supporting new learning, promoting the abolition of slavery, taking in refugees, and using the palace as a base to cultivate her own power. Finally, a coup d'état quietly launched. When the emperor personally issued the edict to abdicate, no one in the court objected and the people cheered. But no one expected that Qingxian did not sit on the dragon chair. He relinquished the throne to Feng Hung, the son of the former crown prince and a reformer who had been in exile for many years, a man who was truly willing to open up the frontier for the people. In my life, I just want to be a clear envy, not a shadow of anyone. However, the quiet and peaceful King Chenzulu left the court calmly after writing a divorce letter, and went to Yunnan with Qingxian to live in seclusion in the mountains. Chapter 6, Flowers in the Mirror, Moon in the Water. Many years later, the reincarnation mirror appeared, turned into a holy relic, and was enshrined in the Temple of Literature in the new dynasty. No one knows its origin, only the inscription in the temple reads. In the past, there was a mirror spirit named Qingxian. He knew the fate of all things and understood the nature of all hearts. He did not go against heaven or people, but only against himself. In Yunnan, there is a small tea house, where it is common for a couple of men to sit opposite each other and enjoy the flowers. One person is as warm as jade, with a sharp edge in his words. A person is as calm as a mountain, and his eyes are full of tenderness. They laugh at each other, no need for a palace, no need for a country. Because this time, life was chosen by himself. Chapter 7, Fireworks in the Hidden World. Yunnan, Bailu Mountain. A year after the change of dynasty, Qingxian and Shenzulu built a two-entry courtyard on the mountainside, named Huijingchu. Tea is planted in the front yard, flowers are planted in the backyard, and there is a pool of lotus water, reflecting their reflection in the past. Qingxian studied herbal medicine and fortune books every day, and wrote a new book called Heart Mirror Record, recording the joys and sorrows of life and death seen in the mirror in those years. Shenzulu revised the old military books and wrote down the past battles and intrigues into 3 records of the way of war for teaching in the military academy of the new dynasty. Occasionally, Qingxian would ask him, "Didn't you say back then, that you were not close to people?" Shenzulu held on to the teacup and said indifferently, "This king's temperament is cold, but he has never said it, and his heart has no love." When he looked back, there was 1,000 tenderness in his eyes. For the first time, Qingxian felt that he didn't need everything in the mirror to see his place clearly. Underscore 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 un. Chapter 8, The Storm of the Imperial Capital. Even though he was in the mountains, the turmoil in the capital had not yet subsided. After Feng Hung ascended the throne, although he established a dynasty with benevolent government, he caused a backlash from the old aristocracy because of the rapid reduction of power. Among them, the Ender remnant party is the leader, plotting to make a comeback. Although Qingxian had no intention of getting involved in politics again, Feng Hung asked him to come out of the mountain again. He didn't answer, but on a rainy night, he dreamed of thousands of souls in the mirror, and wailed, "Why did we die? Now that you're back, you're only looking out for yourself." When he woke up, he was silent for a long time. The next day, he put on his long-lost silver robe and said to Shenzulu, "You protected me once, and I want to protect the world once." Shenzulu was speechless. He straightened his clothes for him and handed him the sword. "I will wait for you to come back." Underscore 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 un. Chapter 9, The Mirror Breaks Again. Qingxian returned to the capital and took over the Taishizi again. He changed the previous fate book system and opened a public fate trial hall to allow the people to report their own murder cases and investigate the wronged souls, exposing the cases of oppression by the royal family in the past. This move shocked the court and set off a fate history clean trial movement. Hundreds of old cases were retried and countless wronged souls were redressed. However, the power of the mirror awakened again, and every time he tried a case, it consumed a part of his soul. Feng Hung advised him, "You have paved the way for the world, why don't you take a break?" But he replied, "If I don't give them justice, then why did I walk out of the mirror?" At the same time, the remnants of Andu took advantage of the situation to cause chaos and raided the capital. Feng Hung was short of troops and became an isolated city. Qingxian then opened the mirror gate again, summoning the 5 souls who were blessed by him in the reincarnation mirror in the past to help fight. The mirror is broken, and the heavens and the earth shook. That night, there was a thunderstorm in the capital city. Everyone saw a dazzling light and 5 figures flying through the sky, turning the tide. The name of the mirror spirit has once again spread throughout the 4 realms. Chapter 10, The Final Book of Destiny. After the rebellion, King Xian's soul power was almost exhausted. He knew that his fate would be short, but he still insisted on completing the last book of life. True Destiny. This book of life no longer records the flow of fate, but those little people who have been forgotten by the times, their hopes and struggles, how they have lived in the wind and rain. Feng Heng personally visited Hui Jingzhu and asked him to determine the fortune map of the dynasty. Qing Xian smiled, "Do you believe me?" Feng Heng replied, "I don't believe in fate, I only believe in you." With his last soul power, he drew the natal chart of the people are respected, and the 4 realms are balanced, and wrote 8 characters at the end of the picture. Not as a teacher to the emperor, but as a heart for the world. On the day the book was written, the last light in the mirror went out. And Qing Xian, slowly closing his eyes, lying next to the lotus pond in the backyard, dressed in starlight, holding an ancient mirror. Shenzulu hugged him and burst into tears. "I said I'd wait for you to come back, but why don't you go home?" The lotus flowers bloom like snow, and the distant mountains are silent. Chapter 11, Flowers in the Mirror. After Qing Xian passed away, Shenzulu never married a wife, and devoted his life to returning to Jingzhou and Xianlin Academy. He set up the heart lamp and sealed the last wisp of soul thought left by Qing Xian in the water heart jade in the center of the lotus pond. The water heart jade passes through the mirror world, and on the night of the full moon, you can see the flower shadow in the mirror reappear. Once, on a snowy night, a young girl mistakenly entered the academy and stood in front of the lotus pond all night, with tears streaming down her face. She said that her name was Lan Titi, and that she had seen ghosts since she was a child, and she had always heard a voice in her dreams saying, "Go to White Deer Mountain and find your name." Shenzulu observed her expression and smelled her breath, and was shocked to find that this woman's soul was incomplete and extremely similar to King Xian's soul power. He asked in a deep voice, "In your previous life, did you have a mirror?" Lan Titi replied, "I often see broken mirrors and silver lotuses in my dreams, and one person said to me that my life can be changed." Shenzulu's heart was like a flood of turmoil. The reincarnation of the mirror spirit should be on her? He rekindled hope. If Qing Xian can really return, this time, he will no longer let fate take him away. Chapter 12, The Reincarnation of the Mirror. In order to verify the authenticity of reincarnation, Shenzulu reopened the mirror array of old books and opened the reincarnation enlightenment with his own essence and blood. That night, the entire Balo mountain was as white as silver, the group of mirrors was open like a tide, Lan Tt stood in the center, and 5 phantoms appeared behind him, namely, the 5 souls in the mirror of reincarnation in the past. They bowed to her and said in unison, "Lord Mirror, welcome home." Lan Miao Miao was shocked and speechless, and suddenly her eyes were filled with tears. In an instant, the soul power in her body burst out like a rainbow. Her consciousness collapsed, and a white shadow broke out of her body from between her eyebrows. "That's the remnant soul of Qing Xian." His voice was low and gentle. "I'm back. In this life, don't let me go again." Shenzulu stroked his forehead, smiled silently, and his eyes were already moist. He said softly, "Let's go home." Chapter 13, Destiny Reunion. Qing Xian returned with a reincarnated body, and his soul body was not yet stable, and he needed to rebuild his soul after 100 days. Shenzulu personally recited the record of the heart mirror every day, using the words of the past to nourish his present soul. During the period of recuperation, Lan Tt gradually recovered her past memories, and the sadness and obsession of the past also dissipated little by little. They didn't talk about the world anymore, nor about fate anymore, but only about spring flowers and autumn moons, tea fragrance, calligraphy and ink. Until one day, Qing Xian came out with medicinal soup, looked at the deer who was cutting wood carving under the tree, and suddenly spoke. "Zulu, you said that you want to build a world, there is no book of destiny, and there is no imperial mandate. Would you still like it?" Shenzulu raised his head and smiled. "Yes." So they compiled the Book of No Life together, completely erasing the Book of Life system, and there is no limit to the life in the world, and everyone is free to die. There are flowers in the mirror, you in the dream, and this life can be peaceful. underscore 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 un. Final chapter, A World Without Mirrors. Many years later, Hujingzhou has already become a holy place in the eyes of the world, and the lifeless school has become the most prosperous school of thought in the new dynasty. Children in the academy often ask, Master, can Mr. Qingxian and King Tianjing get married later? The old elders would always smile and point to the double monument on the back mountain. One piece is engraved with Qingxian, and the other is engraved with Shenzulu. They never had a wedding, but they lived a lifetime as husband and wife. That day, the whole mountain was covered with blooming lotuses, the sky was cloudless, and the water was calm. Some people say that they saw a pair of figures, walking hand in hand in the mountains. They no longer go against their orders, but follow their hearts and go through the last journey. Underscore 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 un. Postscript, we will eventually become ourselves. Qing Xian once said. The person in the mirror will eventually walk out of the illusion, the suffering in life will eventually break and be born again. It's not just his faith, it's ours as well. Whether you have been robbed, mistaken, or injured, as long as you are willing to look back at the mirror in your heart, you can find your original self. You don't need to be a king, you don't need to be a spirit, as long as you will write your own destiny. It's like Kingzi, like Shenzulu. At the end of this story, we understand. The mirror does not reflect fate, but courage.